Hi, you are on the Revenge Eddie channel.
I am 45 years old, and the last number I trusted was the one on the front door of our shop. 1289, my brother Marco painted it himself the week we opened, steady as a surgeon, black enamel that caught the morning sun. We said the door would be our luck. We said a lot of things when the shelves were new and the air still smelled of cut plywood and the future. Our father ran a corner grocery until his hands shook too much to count change. He said business was simple: know your neighbors, pay your debts, write everything down. I believed him like a catechism. When I turned 20, I took a job at a warehouse and learned how freight breathes, how a city's appetite shows up as pallets. Marco drifted in and out of jobs, car audio, remodeling, bartending, good at everything for a while and then bored. He had a face people wanted to forgive. He had a laugh that made a slow day move again. When Dad died, the little inheritance and the life insurance became a question: do we play it safe, or do we try to build something of our own? We signed a lease on a narrow building 2 blocks from the river. We called it River and Sons, even though there were just 2 of us and no sons. The plan was honest and small: hardware up front, tool rentals in the back, and a repair bench where I would fix what could be saved. Marco did the front of house, greetings, jokes, the easy money of impulse buys. I kept the books and the bench, soldering irons, epoxy, the sweet smell of pine dust that glitters in light. For a while, it worked. Contractors stopped in at dawn, homeowners wandered in on Saturdays with broken hinges and optimism, school custodians came for bulk filters and stayed for the space heater. Marco knew everyone's name by week 2. I learned to read trouble by the way a customer cradled a busted drill like a wounded bird. Cash flow wasn't pretty, but it was alive. We ate at the taco truck across the street and counted receipts under the orange glow of the sign. We believed the door number was working. The first crack was a storm. The river swelled, and the city's drains did not. One night in April, the shop took an inch of water, then 3, then 5. We lifted boxes onto tables and prayed. In the morning, the floor was a film of silt, the pegboard was a mural of drip lines, and half the rental inventory had swallowed the river in their motors. Insurance is a word you understand with your whole body when a man in a tie points to fine print and says, "Not covered." I spent 2 weeks coaxing rust out of bearings and hope out of Marco's face. He bounced back faster than I did. "We'll run a sale," he said. "We'll tell the story. People will come help." And they did, with mops and donuts and cash in envelopes. The city can still be a neighbor when it wants to be. I should have tightened the screws then. Dad would have. Instead, I learned a flood can make you say yes to anything that looks like a bridge. A developer named Caldwell started stopping by. He wore perfect jackets and a watch that flashed like he kept the sun under his cuff. He said he had connections, municipal contracts, maintenance deals, the kind of work that would keep a small shop breathing through a long winter. Marco loved him on sight. I wanted to love him. The numbers wanted me to love him. When he slid a folder across the counter with purchase orders and a promise of net 30 payment terms, I signed my name like a gambler who thinks the dice are due. For 3 months, the shop looked busy in the way a patient looks healthy on a fresh dose of painkillers. Orders went out. Our shelves turned. My bench hummed. But cash was late. Caldwell's checks drifted like leaves. "Accounting delay," he said, palms up, smile perfect. Marco said to relax. "He's good for it," he said. "You can feel it." I felt the rent, the payroll, the vendor bills with due dates that behave like alarms. I took a line of credit against the inventory. I told myself it was a bridge. Bridges don't care which direction you're walking when you step off the far side. Elaine, my wife, warned me the house budget was bleeding. She is a nurse with a clock in her bones. Our daughter Sophia is 12, serious as a ledger until a dog walks by. We had made promises, braces, a summer camp if we could swing it, a van that didn't choke at red lights. I told Elaine business is lumpy and this was just a lump. She asked me why Marco's truck had new tires and ours did not. I said something about wholesale discounts. We both knew it was a lie dressed as vocabulary. Vendors started calling me by my first name. At first, it sounded friendly, then it sounded like a warning. I sent emails with words like float and payment plan and we appreciate your patience. I sold my father's coin collection, the one with cardboard squares and careful handwriting, to make the Friday payroll. Marco said he'd talk to Caldwell again, men to men. He came back with a grin and a bottle of whiskey. He says it's all processing next week. Next week became the metronome of my fear. The night the sheriff posted the notice on our door, the number 1289 looked like a joke. Complaint for breach of contract, the paper said, in a font that did not care about my hands. Caldwell had sued us for non-delivery on the last order after he'd changed a spec and refused to sign the revision. Somewhere in the folder I had signed was a clause that made me personally guarantee the work. Marco stared at the paper as if it were in a language he didn't speak. We delivered, he said. We had delivered. It didn't matter. In court, the clause was English and I was a man who had signed it. My lawyer, recommended by a cousin, paid with the equity of our house until the bank learned about it, explained the math. Even if we beat Caldwell on the claim, the delays and fees could kill the shop. If we settled, we'd admit fault and still be bleeding. The judge's schedule had no space for the word neighbor. I watched Marco's face turn from bravado to a boy's fear and then to a look I did not know, calculation. 2 days later, the register was light. Not empty, light. A pattern you can only hear if you've counted a drawer every night for years. I checked the camera and saw Marco pulling cash and pocketing it like a magician who thinks the audience follows the dove and misses the hand. I confronted him behind the paint tints, the place we used to hide and share jokes. He swore it was to pay a guy who could push Caldwell's payment through. He said he'd get it back tomorrow. I said the word tomorrow so hard it felt like a tooth breaking in my mouth. He didn't come in the next day. Or the next. His phone went to voicemail. His apartment was suddenly a vacancy with the blinds drawn. Elaine stopped speaking to me except about Sophia and bills. Leo, the contractor who bought the most from us and used to sit on the back step eating sandwiches with me, closed his account and moved it up the highway. I can't be in the blast radius, he said. I nodded because a man should not argue with the truth when the truth is braver than he is. I tried to keep the shop open alone. I clocked in at 6, I mopped, I fixed, I smiled with teeth that weren't sleeping. I borrowed against tomorrow so often that tomorrow started to send me collection notices in my dreams. Elaine found another bank envelope in the glove compartment and asked me whose idea it was to lie to our daughter by example. I said nothing because the answer was me. Sophia stopped doing homework at the counter. She said the store felt like an old movie where everyone pretends the lights are still on. When the judgment came, it came as a number and a deadline. The number did not include the rent, the vendors, the taxes I had filed late and prayed over. The deadline did not include the weekends I had spent at the bench salvaging dead drills like a priest who refuses to admit a body is cold. The marshal changed the locks on a Friday while I stood with a cardboard box of receipts and a screwdriver I could not pocket because it wasn't mine anymore. 1289 looked at me without blinking. People say failure is a lesson. I have learned many lessons whose tuition was my daughter's summer and my wife's sleep. I have learned that signatures are heavier than they look. I have learned that a brother's promise can turn into a pawn ticket. I have learned that the word partner contains the word part, and sometimes the part you lose is the one that knows who you are when no one is clapping. We sold the house. Sophia asked whether her posters would peel the paint. Elaine packed in the efficient silence that nurses use when rooms need to be turned over for the next patient. She said we could try again someday. She did not say together. I moved into a short-term rental that smells like old carpet and lemon cleaner. I fix small things for cash, lamps, stools, a hinge that squeals like an apology. At night I count the bolts in the ceiling and pretend they are stars that will hold. Marco called once from a number that shows up on the bill as a payphone near the bus station. He said he was sorry. He said Caldwell had pushed him into decisions he didn't understand. He said he had a plan in another city. He said he loved me. I held the receiver and looked at my hands, at the lines of grease that no court can wash off. I told him Dad taught us to write everything down. I'm writing this down, I said. This is the last time. He cried. I believed him for exactly one breath and then remembered the register's soft sound. I still passed the shop on my way to the cheap grocery. Someone else is in there now, a flooring place with bright banners and financed joy. The door number is still 1289, but the enamel is new, a sunnier black that pretends the sun sticks around. I stand across the street and try to subtract myself from the glass. It almost works. Then I see a kid carry in a box of nails and I want to teach him to stack them so the weight lies flat. I want to teach him to sweep the corners first because dust hides there longer. I keep walking. I am 45 years old. I was a shopkeeper. I was a brother. Now I am a man who keeps his receipts in a shoebox and writes down the names of people who still pick up when he calls. The ledger is thinner than it used to be, but I write anyway. Tonight, I will add a line, paid the rent, late. Underneath it, I will add the line I am afraid to write but write anyway, oh Sophia a summer. There will not be a line for 1289. A number on a door can be repainted until it forgets you. A number in a ledger can outlive a shop. The part that does not change is the rust on my hands. Some betrayals leave you a story you can fix by telling it right. This isn't that story. This is a man walking past a familiar door and choosing not to try the handle. This is a brother listening to a payphone ring and deciding not to lift it again. This is a ledger that balances only because I finally admit what is gone. If there is a lesson, it is not one that ends in a speech. It is a quiet line in a book I keep under the sink where no one reads. You cannot build a business with love alone. You cannot save a brother with belief alone. You cannot carry a house on a signature. You can carry the rust. And you will.